Did you always have aspirations to kind of be a mayor, or was it something happened and you kind of changed into it?
I never did. I never ran for student council. I worked in Chattanooga, and and as a lot of people coming up through the working world, my parents both were very involved in the nonprofit world too, in their spare time working for nonprofits. It was really through working in the nonprofit world, you get a lens on, the fabric of a city and what makes a city tick. Being a co-founder at Chattanooga FC was a big part of it, seeing the spirit of a community at a CFC game and realizing, right, this is a really, truly extraordinary community. And then in 2016, after the election and politics got really ugly, I read a book called The New Localism, and it really, the thesis of that book is essentially that cities have more power now than they've ever had to create great lives for the people within them through these real revolutions in technology and in finance. And that was it for me. It was like a revelation. I thought, I can do this, forget all the partisanship stuff, and really lean into making Chattanooga the best city in America, right? And it was a big, hairy goal, but I got possessed with the idea of doing it, and here I am today.
How does it feel now, kind of being in it?
It feels great. I mean, I feel a bit like Sisyphus some days, right? I mean, it's a lot of it's like Sisyphus juggling, because you're rolling multiple rocks up multiple hills at the same time, and it's tough. It's a hard job, but man, I love a challenge and a hard puzzle, and so I'm enjoying it.
What are the kind of changes for you going from a car dealership, a business-oriented guy, to coming into having to do that, working with all different sorts of people and stuff? Was that a big shift, or was it a lot of it?
You'd be shocked at how little a shift it was. Car businesses is, and then of course I ran multiple businesses, right? And so it's very much like being in the city. There's a big difference between legislative politics and executive politics. This is an executive political job. We have 2,600 employees. It's just like running a bigger company, if you will. But it's the same thing. It's problem solving and getting things done. I mean, I used to have to worry about 5,000 people out there driving, Subarus and Cadillacs and cars, and now I have to worry about 180,000 voters. But in a way, it is very much like a retail business. I mean, what they think matters. So, you have to get good at listening. I just have a lot more customers now.
So you brought some tools in that case that applied.
That's why I ran for mayor. I realized at some point I think I'll probably be pretty good at this, and so far so good.
So what you said, is there a key to unlocking the no partisanship stuff?
Yeah, I think there is. I think the key is just breaking things down into their smallest little component pieces. And I think if you can explain, if you don't get lazy with your language and fall back into the language of one side. I mean, both sides, if you you don't have to study it long, you'll realize that the left and the right both use certain language and they talk about things in a certain way, and you shouldn't, right? I mean, if you can use your own language and talk about things in the spirit of community and what's best in a very practical way for the community, breaking things down into their tiniest little Lego blocks, if you will, then that stuff tends to fall away. There's no Republican or Democrat way to take out the trash, as Fiorello LaGuardia, the mayor of New York, once said, and as another mayor, I think of Pittsburgh, once said, there are really three political parties in the United States: Republicans, Democrats, and mayors. It is an incredibly practical job. And when you get people to focus on each other and their neighbors, right, the person they're sitting next to at their kid's basketball game, as has been said before, it's hard to hate up close. It really is. And if you can, again, get people to turn off their cable news and think about their community. We live in an extraordinary community, and what happens in this community is what really determines our quality of life, not what happens, on the television.
It's like the terrible stuff is seeped into every local community. It's not happening there.
Well, yeah, no, psychologically, I think people they're losing that defense where, again, it's a daily recipe of bad news, the shootings and the violence, because, fear and hate sell better than hope and love. And that stuff seeps in and people have to be reminded. I think it fires up our hindbrains and changes the way that we think and behave, and we should essentially discount that stuff. And I'm a big fan of yours and of local news and of local news outlets, because we need to be thinking about each other here together.
That is a huge thing. That's what my kind of thinking was on this. Local, just even the word local, it's going to be more of a. I think it's going to be more of a focus going forward.
It's a huge focus. Again, I'm not here to do an ad for Channel 3, but I love their recent rebranding, on Local 3, because that's it. It's local, 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 right? It's in a way, it's a version of the Serenity Prayer, right? I'm not a pastor. I wouldn't attempt to play one on TV, but we need to focus on what we can control, and that's local, and let God worry about the rest, right? I mean, I think we would be a lot happier as a country if everybody just focused on what they could control locally.
What you just said there really struck a chord with me. It's hard to hate the guy sitting right next to you.
It is.
Although that stuff kind of melts away when you get down to real.
It really, really does. When you realize you've got more in common with that guy, your kids are going to school together, you work together. A lot of what the television does to us is dehumanizes. It turns us into cartoons, and we're not. We're people.
Now that you've been into this a little while, what would you say the job of a mayor is? I thought that was profound what you said. There's Republicans, Democrats, and mayors.
Yeah.
How would you now know how would you describe the job of a mayor?
Man. Well, it's about leadership first and foremost, right? It's about setting the tone, and it's about holding your team accountable to solve problems. It's about problem solving, right? There are a number of things that come up. I mean, we have all kinds of challenges, from gun violence and public safety to homelessness and affordable housing. And again, this is not a hard job to do necessarily, because you can sit in that office and do God knows what, read all day, and just take your chances next time an election rolls around. But it's a hard job to do well, which is to say, to tackle those challenges with urgency and focus, and hold your people accountable to get them, to get things done. That's tough. And again, I think that's why you see a wide range of variability in American cities in terms of the ones that are doing well and the ones that are doing poorly. If you've got a mayor who's not very good or not very focused on problem solving, you're going to have issues. I do also think it's worth saying that the One Chattanooga plan has a lot to do with keeping people inspired. I had no idea when I wrote it. It's been said before, the only reason to write a book is because you can't not, right? It just has to get it out of you. And in a way, the One Chattanooga plan was that way for me, because it is the
Jerry
thesis.
Maguire's perspectives.
Well, yeah, there you go. But it was my thesis on here are the problems, and here's how we're going to attempt to solve the problems. It's still there. You can download it, look at it on the website if you need to get to sleep tonight. But what I discovered in doing it was that it did inspire people, that we got people that came to work here who probably wouldn't have otherwise come to work here because they believed in it, right? And people want to see energized leadership, and they want to know that what they're doing is meaningful. I mean, our pay scale here is not very competitive with the private sector, honestly. So it's got to be people who have a deep conviction about wanting to make this a better city, and thank God a lot of people here do.
That One Chattanooga, just some detail on that. Did you write that before you were mayor, or as you were thinking about it, or after you became mayor?
The broad sketches of the One Chattanooga plan were before I was mayor and during the campaign. And then as we came into office, it was kind of the distillation of everything that I had learned and on the campaign trail, and kind of the thesis around it. So yeah.
Are you still following along with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We still talk about it on a daily basis almost, and it's still the framework. We need to do some revision, not much revision, I think, but we'll update it soon. We've always said it was a living document, but I think we got it mostly right.
Kind of cool to have a framework or a foundation to go by.
It is. It's not very common, because I think a lot of politicians don't want to be held accountable and don't want to put it out there because they might not do it and fail, but that's just not who I am. My 9-to-5 days are just like my old 9-to-5 days. Again, I'm a worker. I like working, but it can be stressful because there's just a lot to do. A lot of people want my ear. A lot of people want to talk, and most of them have something valuable to say. So it can be exhausting, but it's good, rewarding work.
Do you have any, you can give us some good sneak peeks of kind of some good things that are coming for Chattanooga, or do you have in the works that we can talk about, or is that too vague?
Well, the budget that we've just produced is really just building on last year's budget, which was very much about One Chattanooga priorities. And it's, again, by any measure, it's very, very ambitious. So depending on what part of it you're looking at, I mean, again, some of them are opportunities, some of them are problem solved. I will say we're doing a lot more focused and intentional work on affordable housing, and we'll be able to roll out a lot more support for affordable housing very soon. On the economic development front, we've got a lot of great announcements coming, and a lot of new jobs coming to town. We'll soon be talking about a master plan for parks. Again, Chattanooga's green spaces are kind of the DNA of who we are. So yeah, this will be an exciting year. We'll get a lot of traction in a lot of important areas.
Very cool. Anything you'd like to add?
No, sir. Thanks. Great to see you as always.